Welcome to the June 8th meeting of the Glendale City Council. May we have a roll call, please?
Council members Draymond.
Here.
Friedman.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Najarian. Mayor Pro Tem Quintero.
Here. The invocation this evening will be led by, let's start with the flag salute, and I'll do that. Please join me in. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation. This week, many of our city's residents who trace their roots back to the Philippines will be celebrating the nation's Independence Day. On June 12, 1898, Filipino revolutionary forces under General Aguinaldo proclaimed sovereignty and independence of the Philippine Islands from the colonial rule of Spain, which had been recently defeated at the Battle of Manila Bay during the Spanish-American War. Let us pray for our Pinoy and Pinay brothers and sisters who have helped make Glendale such a wonderful city and for the continued prosperity and relationships we share as one community. We give thanks for the many hardworking Filipino Americans who have helped make our nation great in every field, from sciences to art, from local mayors to members of Congress, and in sports and architecture. Let us remember the many Filipino soldiers who died alongside our troops and helped liberate the nations of the Pacific from the rule of Imperial Japan. We pray our nations will remain close and build stronger relations in the future and benefit both peoples. Amen.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Clerk, may we have your report?
The agenda for the June 8, 2010 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, June 3, 2010 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Okay, let me say that Mayor Najarian is traveling and won't be with us this evening. Mr. Starburn.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I can, a quick interlude here. I want to apologize to you and the members of the audience for the condition of the room this evening. I guess we've had technical difficulties with the AC and are working on getting it started. This is it's pretty hot, I recognize, but the staff is working on getting the AC up and running so that it won't be so miserably hot in here. Our apologies for that.
Okay, and on related to 8A, the action items at 8A, we're going to hold that over until next week when we'll have a full city council and Mr. Najarian can participate in the discussion. Okay, next please.
Next item would be presentation and appointments. At 3A is agenda preview for the meetings of June 15, 2010.
Mr. Starburn.
Yes, let me go to Yasmin Beers, Deputy City Manager, for the report, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, for June 15th, for the Glendale Housing Authority, we have no business agenda items. For the Glendale Redevelopment Agency as well, there are no business agenda items. We do have a joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Redevelopment Agency. Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing proposed 9th amendment to the redevelopment plan for the Central Glendale Redevelopment Project area. In the afternoon at 2:30, another joint meeting of the City Council and the Financing Authority, Director of Administrative Services, Finance, lease agreement between the City and the Glendale Financing Authority to fund operations for the City's Government Access Channel, GTV6. We have a City Council special meeting at 2:30, Director of Administrative Services, Finance. This is the third quarter financial update and adjustments to the adopted budget for fiscal year 2009-2010. At 6 p.m. for the Glendale City Council meeting, we have a number of consent items. General Manager of GWP, annual authority for the purchase of sale of energy services. General Manager of Glendale Water and Power, execution of a standard office lease for facilities located at 700 North Brand Boulevard. General Manager of Glendale Water and Power, approval of the Glendale Water and Power public benefit programs and budgets for fiscal year 2010-2011 and 2011-2012. Director of Public Works, this is proposal received to restore and preserve City Hall's historical lobby tile. For adoption of ordinances, we do have an ordinance that we moved from this evening's agenda to next week, which is for the supplementary benefits and compensation of certain officers and employees of the City of Glendale. Under action items, City Manager provides staff direction on the policy for the City's Government Access Channel, GTV6. Director of Information Services. This is an agreement with Freedom Speaks Incorporated for smartphone service request software and services for a 3-year lease with an option to renew. Director of Public Works, this is an appeal by GNS Management. This is regarding the city cab to City Council regarding renewal of an owner's permit to operate 15 taxi cabs in the city of Glendale for a period of less than 5 years. And we have 2 hearing items. Director of Administrative Services Finance, this is a proposed budget of the city of Glendale for the fiscal year 2010-2011. And Director of Public Works, revision of the refuse collection fees. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, please.
At 3B is a proclamation designating June 7th through 12th, 2010 as Philippine Independence Week.
Okay, I have a proclamation, and it reads as follows. Whereas this is the 112th year of independence from colonial rule by the Republic of the Philippines, and in recognition, many Filipino communities in California and throughout the world will celebrate this historic event with appropriate festivities. Whereas the outbreak of the Philippine Revolution in 1896 and the Declaration of Independence on June 12, 1898, marks the Philippines as having the first constitutional democracy in Asia, the Filipino-American community constitutes the largest ethnic group among Asian Pacific Islanders, Americans, and the anniversary celebration of Philippine independence reminds people of this state of the historical and cultural benefits that Californians have received and will continue to receive from the Filipino-American community. Whereas the Filipino-American Business Association of Glendale and the Phil-Am Kiwanis Club of Glendale, a nonprofit group of business and professional men and women, exist in this great community for the sole purpose of helping and serving to provide exemplary business leadership and community service. Therefore, our Najarian Mayor of the City of Glendale proclaims the week of June 7th to 12th as Philippine Independence Week. And we have Ruby De Vera and Linda Weaver to accept the commendation proclamation.
The old regulars. Ruby, in case anybody wondering, this is my better half. May not like me saying it. Oh, to my Marvin, join in the crowd. I'm going to say
Just in time.
my wife's father was in the Bataan Death March. She was a baby. She survived in the hills. He escaped from the Bataan Death March, joined the American forces, and fought the rest of the war until it was over. She survived because a Japanese officer took her mother. She cooked for him, sewed, whatever, and he gave food. So her wife is here today because of that. So very proud of her, and for all the Filipinos. Congratulations, Ruby.
Thank you.
And I'll see you later, my dear.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Dave Weaver, and I'm joined here today with the past presidents of Filipino-American Business Association, and we really appreciate this gesture from the Glendale City Council, and would like to take this opportunity to invite you. We have a celebration at Max of Manila immediately after, and we have one of our best singers from the Philippines entertaining the group, Bernardo. So if you have any time between now and when you adjourn, you may want to join us. Thank you again so much, sir.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Quintero,
Mr. Draymond.
I just wanted to add as a supplemental historic note something that I've mentioned last year, and it came to mind again because of Mr. Kasakian's comment about President Aguinaldo, that his grandson and great-grandson were residents of Glendale, and John Aguinaldo Jr. graduated from Crescenta Valley High School, one of my older sisters. And I think that is another Glendale connection that is very interesting. And it so had an impression on my family that when in the days of the American Field Service, that when my older sister was old enough to have a host, that we could be a host family for an exchange student, we were fortunate to have a student, high school student, come to live with us from the Philippines, from Iloilo, and it was a very interesting experience all the way around. Terrific experience, and I'll remember that and treasure that for the rest of my life. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Comments? Okay, next, please.
Next is from Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Council. We have a special presentation from Clark High School regarding their senior projects. And to speak on that is a teacher from Clark High School, Ann Reinhardt.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to be here. My name is Ann Reinhardt, and I am a teacher, and I'm also the senior project coordinator at Clark Magnet High School. And at our high school, if you click on, each senior is required to do a senior project in order to graduate. And as part of that senior project, during the fall of their senior year, they choose an area of focus, which could be an area of interest or career exploration. They write a persuasive research paper, and then they begin their field work under the supervision of their English teacher and their mentor. And they perform, well, it could be a variety of things, but they do various number of hours of service or investigation or work or whatever it may be towards producing a final product. Once they've created that final product or performed that final product or staged that final product, whatever it may be, they then do an oral boards presentation. And on that day, which is a Saturday in May or June, the students present their final product as well as give a 10 to 15 minute speech which tells about their experience in working toward that final product and what they learned from that. And this is done in a professional setting. The way that we provide that professional setting for them is through the volunteerism of adults in our community. And they come from our school, our district, local colleges, local community organizations, area businesses, and also local and state government. By coming and participating in Oral Boards Day, these judges not only provide valuable service to our youth and community, but they give these students a professional experience with what they have done, and they also provide an evaluation and give the students feedback on their project and their presentation. And one of the reasons I'm here tonight is to say thank you, because thanks to Mr. Kasaki, and we had several members of the Glendale City Management involved in judging our senior projects this year, and that was really a great experience, and we really truly appreciate the support. The other reason we're here tonight is so that we can share with a few more people exactly what the senior projects are about. And as such, I've brought a couple of students with me, and our first presenter will be Eleni Eskandari, and she's going to talk for a moment about her senior project.
You can start by giving us your name for the record.
I'm Eleni Eskandari. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And for my senior project, I volunteered at the Burbank Community YMCA's Child Development Center. I volunteered here because I really wanted to be kind of undercover and figure out the ways that the teachers there go about teaching students character education. I put together a guidebook on how to teach character education after having volunteered there. Through observing, note-taking, and interacting with the children and teachers at the Burbank YMCA. Through all of this, I learned that it really is hard to go about teaching children. That's just the way it is. Children don't know any better, and teachers have that great responsibility. For my research paper, I argued the reasons why character education should be implemented in schools, and learned that in order to get that across to the community, you have to have a lot of passion. And it takes more than one person to put that passion across, but it can take just one person to transform that issue forever. And I just want to thank you guys and thank Clark Magnet High School for having given me the opportunity, because now I want to know, I know what I want to do for my career. I want to teach, so. And I have the privilege of presenting Savalk Sargsyan, another one of my classmates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Savak Sargisyan, and I'm a student at Clark Magnet High School. And I did my senior project on the ethics of organ transplantation. And there's actually two reasons why I did it. First of all, it's just interesting for me, the surgical field, and I want to go into it. Not necessarily the field of organ transplant, but just surgery, like general surgery. And the second reason is I lost a relative in cardiac surgery, transplant surgery, and it just bothered me kind of, and I wanted to learn more about it. And for my fieldwork, I volunteered at laboratory in Burbank. It's called Diagnostic Laboratories and Radiology. Basically what they do is go to people's houses and nursing homes and hospitals and take blood samples from patients. Some of these patients had to get transplant surgery and some just for doctor's requests and stuff. So I went with one of the phlebotomists and assisted her in drawing blood. And these are some of the pictures from my field work. And the final product was a dissection of a heart, which I had to learn all the parts of the cardiovascular system and the cardiac system and how the blood circulates through the body. And that's my senior project. Thank you. And I would like to introduce Mr. Stokes, who was one of the judges for our oral boards day.
Good evening, members of council and staff. I'm Todd Stokes. I'm one of the directors on the Glendale Management Association. We got a call asking us to provide volunteers for the senior project at Clark. We're more than happy to do that. I think we provided a half dozen volunteers on a Saturday to help out with this really worthwhile event up there. And I was one of those volunteers. I got a chance to sit on the panel. And I can tell you, Sevak, he did bring the dissected heart to our panel. We got to experience that firsthand. But what a fantastic experience it was. These kids were prepared, they were poised, they were passionate about the topics they had chosen to speak about. And as I sat there listening to all of the students, I was thinking, what a great experience and what a great toolkit they all got to learn there at Clark to take with them as they graduated. And I was thinking, as I listened to all the students, that there's a bright future for us here with these kids being produced by the school district and specifically by Clark. And it wasn't just the graduating seniors. We had a little technical glitch during one of the presentations. We called for technical support, and two young men, about 14 years old, walked in the room, locked up the computer, diagnosed it, fixed it in about 90 seconds, and we're out the door. So they got a lot of really great things going on up there at Clark. With that, I can't wait to do this again next year. This was my first year doing it. Was the new guy. I can't wait to go back next year. I hope the program's still there next year. I know as our GMA members talk amongst themselves about the experience, I think we'll get a much larger group participating next year. And for anybody out there who's thinking about doing it, do it. Call the district, call Clark and volunteer for their program next year. It's a great experience and really great group of staff and kids up there at Clark. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one question.
Mr. Weaver.
Are there any more Clark students coming down to see government in action? I think we've seen just about, 30 or more?
No, more than 30.
More? One tonight? Congratulations, you made it. There's sure been a lot coming down from your school.
These are current Panthers, by the way, Mr. Weaver.
Okay.
I say that with pride as a former Panther. Of course, that's when Clark was a junior high school, as we called them then, and not a magnet school. I don't think I would have made it into Clark now, but at the time it was a junior high school. But I still count myself as a Panther. That is a former Clark Junior High School Panther, just in case this ends up on YouTube.
Ms. Friedman.
Well, I wanted to thank the students for coming in today and the instructors. Seeing you here today gives me a real sense of pride in Glendale schools. Every time I come in contact with GUSD, I always feel just so happy that we have this wonderful resource of our schools in Glendale, and particularly the young people, because what you're doing is very exceptional, and you give me a lot of faith in our future in Glendale and in this country. So thank you for the effort that you're putting into your schooling, and I know you're going to go very far. Thanks for coming.
And let me say, I was just interviewed a few minutes ago by a Clark student who had another engagement, but she promises she'll watch on TV. All right, next, Mr. Kazakian.
City Council and staff comments.
City Council staff comments, Ms. Friedman.
Just a few. The first, I wanted to report that on Sunday, I participated in the LA County Bicycle Coalition River Ride, which is an annual event. And this is the first year that Glendale has come on to the event as a sponsor. And because of our sponsorship, children under the age of 16 were able to ride for free in the event. And we also distributed, I think it was 22 free bicycles to disadvantaged kids in Glendale. So it was a wonderful ride. They had almost 3,000 people show up to go on the ride, and it just grows every year. And I wanted to just publicly thank the volunteers. There were hundreds, about 200 or 300 people who volunteered their time to help out with the ride. We had several of our elected representatives from the area were present to speak, and from Los Angeles as well. And it was a great event. And secondly, this is more of a message to staff. I wanted to show them, and this is something that I think has been brought up before by council, is asking for some sort of a long-term sort of tracking of different projects that we ask about in information items, and having a schedule so that we can see from week to week when items are going to be coming back to us, so that we don't start to get antsy and wonder. So I wanted to just show you one from another board that I'm on and what they do, and hope we can come up with something similar. Thank you very much.
Mr. Draymond, then Mr. Weaver.
Three things, Mr. Mayor, if my voice will make it through all three. First, I'd like to thank the public for attending the 27th Annual Montrose Arts and Crafts Festival, Saturday and Sunday. It was very warm. The crowds were undaunted, however. And I think the record for the two weekends in all those years has been 60,000 attendees over the 2 days. This was certainly more than 50. It was packed, as usual. Sunday was the busier of the 2 days. It was so crowded at times that it was literally shoulder to shoulder. The vendors did very, very well. There were 425 vendors at the event, which is a very large event. Anyway, they did well. The stores seemed to do well. And so we're very pleased about that. And I, again, want to thank, I see a lot of you who are here this evening or wandering around there over the weekend. Many of you wearing shorts and T-shirts and hats, though, to take refuge from the intense sun. Secondly, I received an email, as I know, I've been contacted, as I know my colleague, Councilmember Friedman, has been contacted, and possibly others, about the status of what's sometimes referred to as Lawson Manor, the historic home on Lawson Place. And Mr. Yes, Jay, I think, I don't have my glasses on. I think that's Jay back there. If not, I'm sorry, madam. No. I think that's Jay. You were mentioned in the email I received as to having been apprised of this, and Mr. Hagani, you as well. I would like to make sure that we are doing what we can to make sure that historic resources such as this are being looked at, protected, and that nothing too premature or abrupt happens with these properties. But more importantly, I think that the public wants to know that nothing, and that neighborhood in particular wants to know. So do you have anything for us on that?
I believe I'm going to ask Jay Platt to come and answer this question. We actually followed up on the inquiry when it was forwarded to us.
Thank you.
This is a house on Lawson Place, which is a one-block street in the Rockmont neighborhood. And we have met with the owner of the house, who's a new owner. And I think anytime there's, a house that people love and there's a new owner, there's concern about what might happen. In this case, we discussed what his plans are for the house. He indicated that he is very keen on not going through the design review process and doing work that's going to be approval at staff level. As soon as I told the neighbors that this was the case, that kind of assuaged a few of the fears, because staff level approvals, you can't do a tremendous amount of work that's going to change the style of the house or the character of the house at that level. And the council should also know that the neighbors in the area have filed the preliminary, it's not an official nomination for historic district status at this point, but we're working with them to look at this as a potential district.
Would the district be the entire Brockmont area or just that?
That's part of what we're working on. They've proposed a boundary that's Cumberland, Lawson Place, part of Valley View, and not going up as far into the hills. So we have to look at what's on the ground and then what the historic development of the area was.
So at this stage, the quote, proposed boundaries, unquote, are not completely defined at this point.
About 40
In any
houses.
case, I just want to make sure that with regard to this particular property, that there are some eyes that continue to watch this.
We had a nice conversation with the owner, and I think things will go okay there.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, by the way. And then lastly, Mr. Quintero, I just want to follow up on the boxed trees issue that Kenneth Howard raised with some of us. Mr. Zern, can you?
And actually, Mr. Draymond, I think that was Parks and Recreation. And George did follow up with an email indicating that we're out inspecting the trees currently, and we'll follow up actively on it.
Okay. Thank you very much. And at some point, will we be getting in touch with Mr. Howard at the end of that period?
Yes, and I'm expecting that very shortly.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Weaver.
I'd like to adjourn the meeting tonight in the memory of what I consider a great individual. He's been not a Glendale resident, he's been spoken of as one of the greatest people in this century. It's not for what he did on the basketball court alone, but what he did afterwards. I'm speaking of John Wooden. I'm a USC guy, always have been, but this man went far beyond coaching basketball. He did so much in his life, his pyramid of success, all his quotes, they're used by basketball coaches and other coaches in all mediums all across the United States. Every basketball coach in America has used his offensive defensive schemes. I still remember back in 1970-71, USC won 24 games and lost 2. Those 2 were to UCLA, and in those days, only the winner got advanced to the NC2A. It was very frustrating sitting there watching UCLA go into a four-corner offense, and I'm screaming how much I did not like John Wooden. But boy, you talk about a legend. Almost made it to 100 years. And I had a son who played on that team, is in Glendale. Bill Boyd is working for the Charles Dunn Company here in Glendale. Bob Boyd's son. I had the great honor, and I'll never forget it, the best experience I've ever had at Pacific Edison was where John Wooden came to speak. I think they had the tape on earlier. And I was the mayor at the time. I was able to go backstage and talk with him and get his autograph, and I'll never forget that. Rare individual, known throughout the world, and I think we should honor him by adjourning in his memory tonight.
I agree. I talk about a couple of events I attended. First was the 80th anniversary of Burbank Airport. Very interesting, all of the pictures and what life was like 80 years ago, and especially as it pertained to aviation. The Hope family actually threw the party. Now it's the Bob Hope Airport, as we know. But it's a very well-attended event and very interesting to see how much aviation and that particular airport has grown. And then the second event was the ribbon cutting for Habitat for Humanity, just a fantastic project that was completed a little north of the 134 freeway. Habitat for Humanity, as many of you know, the people who buy the homes actually have to work and put in their own sweat equity, it's called, in order to purchase the homes. This particular project was the first project that where we used a podium, where they actually did an underground garage. That was obviously done by a professional contractor with all of the required engineering, and then the structures were built above that. So 11 units, 11 townhouses, and lots of volunteers. There were hundreds of people in attendance, as well as a lot of the people who have moved into these Habitat for Humanity homes in other parts of Glendale come and actually donate their time for the new projects. Then there were also some building trade unions that also participated, the plasterers and cement finishers and so forth. So at any rate, it was just a great project, far superior to some of the private development that takes place in this city. So it just shows you that if you have the proper architects and you have the proper design, you can really design and do something that comes in at a reasonable price. Any other comments, Ms. Friedman?
One last thing. I heard on the news today that they're predicting, I don't know who they is, but they are predicting that today might be the lowest turnout election in California history. So I just want to remind people that today is Election Day, and that even if you're frustrated, as many of us are, with what's happening in politics and in Sacramento, there's a lot of really important issues on the ballot, and people running for offices that are very important to the city of Glendale. So I hope that everybody goes out and gets their sticker and votes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, please.
Next is a consent items. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion, and a member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed. And we have requests for items 5D and 5F.
Right, we'll pull 5D and F. Do we have a...
I'll move the remainder of the consent items.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Najarian? Mayor Pro Tem Quintero?
Yes. Would you read 5D into the record?
5D is General Manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding capacitor bank circuit switchers replacement for furnishing and delivering 72.5 kilowatt 600A 31.5K a circuit switcher for replacement, spec number 3412. At D1 is a resolution adopting specs and directing the city clerk to advertise for bids.
I have one card, Herbert Milano.
Mayor Pro Tem Quintero, members of the City Council and City staff, my name is Herbert Milano. I come to speak to you with regard to the various different capital improvements that are needed by the Glendale Water and Power. Because one of the things that I have been asking for in terms of information is a full overview of all of the capital improvement needs and the aging of those capital improvements so that you and the public can know where we stand with regard to the requirements and the needs overall by the Glendale Water and Power. What happens is that when you have a request for funding isolated from the rest of the items, we sometimes forget what are the other areas in capital improvements that the Glendale Water and Power requires. 3 years ago in January, we had a significant shortage on the funds available for the water utility. The city had an emergency situation where they needed to replace the valves of the Dietrich Reservoir. The city only had about $1.5 million left in the reserves for the Glendale, for the water utility, and soon after that, you had to go into an emergency approach to obtain $50 million in bond issues and $60 million for the electric utility. I think that the public needs to know the aging of all of the major infrastructure needs of the Glendale Water and Power, so that when a decision is made to transfer money from the Glendale Water and Power, the public recognizes what are the capital improvements that are not being done, because you're transferring that money, $23 million this year, from the Glendale Water and Power into the general fund to cover the significant increases in payroll and benefits. I think that there is an obligation within the charter that the Glendale Water and Power must attend first to its expenses and its overall improvements prior to making all of these transfers to the general fund. As such, the Glendale Water and Power for a very long time has been underfunded with regard to its requirements for capital improvement, and we don't get an overall picture of those needs oftentimes until it is too late, and we have to borrow and issue bonds against it. For a very long time, the city of Glendale was under a policy of you pay as you go. You put money aside, you create reserves, and then you make your capital improvement. We have moved a long ways from that, where now we basically transfer the money, and if there is no capital improvement money left, we issue bonds and borrow against it. For that reason, I think that we need an overall overview of all of the major components of the capital improvement needs of the Glendale Water and Power, and they be presented every time money is asked for the City Council. Thank you very much.
Mayor,
Okay, roll call.
I'll move 5D1.
Have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian, Mayor Pro Tem Quintero.
Yes. 5F, please.
5S is Director of Community Planning regarding funding request to complete a grant awarded to the Planning Department by the California Office of Historic Resources to upgrade the city's database of historic properties. At F1 is a resolution appropriating $9,300.
Okay, I have one card. Mike Mohill.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Quintero and council members. Mike Mohill, resident Glendale, long time. The amount of money we're talking about isn't much, $9,300. But we have a debt coming up, about $35 million shortfall. No? That number's been changed. Last week it was $35 million.
Well, that was a headline that was incorrectly written.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can someone correct me for me?
We've been told.
Okay, all right. Well, the point is, I think I don't want to say this. I know we're not in the black. Let's put it that way. Okay. At one time, the numbers was $88 million. That was Mr. McFall at the time told me that was an oversight a couple years ago, and now it's not that far off being $88 million. Point is, right now is $9,000. It's just another 9,000 here and 9,000 there. You know, do we really need this is the question. It's not going to break us. I understand that too. It's just another $9,000 here and $1 million here and $1 million there. Before you know it, you got lots of millions. You know, so it's your call. You're the council people. You know, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Motion. Mr. Weaver.
Since we will be reimbursed for the $9,300 upon its completion, I'll move 5F1.
And a second, then you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a comment. I will second, but I have a comment, which is we will, I'll reiterate, we will be reimbursed for most of this money, but also, you know, certainly people have different priorities, and something that's a great project for one person might seem like a waste of money to someone else. I do think that this is a good use of money, because what this will help to do is to give property owners some certainty, so that when people go and look at buying a piece of property, they're going to know in advance whether or not it's a historic resource. And that will protect. That'll make buyers feel more comfortable and more confident about buying something, knowing that they're not going to pay a huge premium for, let's say, a little craftsman thinking they're going to knock it down and put up a fiveplex, and then find out that they can't because it's a historic resource. So I think it's something that will really help our businesses, being, you know, some developers or real estate people and homeowners, know what they're dealing with. So I think in this case, given that it's going to be reimbursed and that it'll help give a very valuable tool to property owners and buyers and sellers, I think it's a very good use of money. And I think Mr. Starbird had a comment.
No, you said it. I was going to emphasize that this amount of money is fully reimbursed to the federal grant.
Okay, roll call, please.
I need a motion and a second.
There was a motion, Weaver and Friedman.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian, Mayor Pro Tem Quintero.
Yes. Okay, we'll,
Next would be oral communications.
all right, we have some presentations. We'll start with Zavan Kazazian, George Sailaki, 3 minutes each. Sakali.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Quintero, City Council, Jim Starbird, and staff. I'm Zavan Kazazian. I'm the president of the Armenian American Chamber of Commerce, and it is a great pleasure that we have collaborated with the Glendale YMCA to start a YMCA Scholars Judo program. And tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, we're going to have a red ribbon cutting at the YMCA for this program. We're joined by the Glendale Chamber of Commerce. So the two chambers are joined together with the Glendale YMCA. And we would love to have anybody who can join from you or from the public at large. Would love to have you come and join us. It will be a great event. Well, I'm going to let George do a little bit more talking and give the details. George is the CEO, and I am, since it's very easy for me to butcher my last name, I'm going to try and keep it not butchered. Saikili.
Saikali. That's
Saikali.
Close enough.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm George Saikali. I'm the new CEO at the Glendale YMCA, and I'd like to echo Zavan's invitation, hoping I could see you tomorrow, or we could see you tomorrow in the public tomorrow evening, because I think you will find out that the Glendale YMCA is still a true reflection of this community. And this is one of our core strengths. We will always be aiming at being relevant and being strong serving this community. I thank you, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
Well, and let me say, number one, welcome you, George, to the community. I had the good fortune of meeting him a few months ago, more than a few months ago. It's been quite a few months, and I was keeping my fingers crossed that he would get the post. He did. What an incredible background, great personality. I think you're the right person for the job, and we're looking forward to working with you and watching you grow the YMCA. And then number two, unfortunately, I have a meeting down at the city of Vernon. Otherwise, I'd be there tomorrow and I'd be tossing Zavan around the around the mat.
It's going to take a lot to do that.
I think you may need
But
some
anyway, gee, it sounds like a great program. I'm sorry I won't be able to make it, but hopefully some of the others
We had
will.
heard that you were going to cut the ribbon with your hands, which are lethal weapons, I was told. No?
That's right. But anyway,
Since the mayor has volunteered to come and participate, let me clarify that these are for kids ages 5 to 14, boys and girls.
Your point would be?
And so I just want to make sure the fact that, but we'll make an exception for the mayor.
all right, thank you very much for the announcement. Hope
I'm
to
going to
see you
leave
soon.
some flyers here with the city clerk, and, if you would please. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Thank you very much. Leon Mayer, followed by Elizabeth Gibson.
Good evening, Mayor Quintero, members of the council and staff. My name is Leon Mayer, and I'm here, first of all, on behalf of the library itself. Next Monday is the start of the summer read program for adults, teens, and children. So all you people who want to read and should read, come to the Central Library or any of the branch libraries to enroll in this program. It's a great program. I'm also here as chairman of the Author, Artist, and Friends series, and I'd like to echo Mr. Weaver's appreciation for the fact that we were able to bring John Wooden to one of our events at Pacific Park about 4 years ago, and it was a great privilege to introduce Mr. Wooden, and I remember very well Mr. Weaver being there and making the remarks he did. Now, next week, next Tuesday, we will have Michelle Hunovan the author of Blame. This is a famous book about remorse and redemption. And she is going to also not only talk about her book Blame, but she's also going to talk about how to write novels in these attention deficit times. So that should be a very interesting lecture. Everybody's invited to come to that. And then on Wednesday, that would be Wednesday the 14th of June, we will have Steve and Harrison Stark, the authors of World Cup 2010. And they're almost like sports analysts, and they're going to talk about this. I guess we don't have it up on the board right now, but they're going to talk about the indispensable guide to soccer and geopolitics. And it's going to be a very fun program, and it's a fun book. And anybody who has any interest at all in soccer, you've got to come to this event on Wednesday, 7 o'clock, June 16th at the library. All our events are free. Parking is validated at the adjoining parking structure by Maryland. Thank you very much. And I have flyers here. I gave them around to most people, but raise your hand as I leave, and I'll give you, who don't have one, what I have here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Elizabeth Gibson.
Hello and good evening, council members. My name is Elizabeth Gibson. I work for Glendale Adventist Medical Center as an outreach specialist in the Tobacco Control Department. Recently, we notified the Glendale Police that we were going to conduct a youth purchase survey to test the effectiveness of the city's tobacco retail licensing program. Our youth volunteers were between 15 and 17 years old, and they went out to pretend to purchase cigarettes. They didn't actually purchase them. They said they forgot their money or didn't have enough or something like that. But out of the 100 stores that the LA County Department of Public Health gave us to survey that they selected randomly, only 10 stores were willing to sell tobacco to the minors. And this is we're very happy about this result. We're very pleased because it shows that the policy is working effectively. In 2006, the rate that we found was 24%. So we found that 24 out of the 100 stores that we surveyed back then sold to minors. This year, in 2010, only 10 were willing to sell. Most store owners and clerks were adamant about asking for a photo ID just to make sure that the youth, who were actually minors, were at least 18 years old. And some lectured the youth, which was quite funny. And they were like, it's okay. But anyway, some lectured the youth and were confident that the compliance checks that the Glendale Police and the code enforcement officers will conduct in the future will discourage the non-compliant retailers to stop selling in the future. So once again, we just thank you for adopting that policy, and we're very happy to report the results.
Well, and we thank you for continuing your work. That's a very interesting report. I'm very happy to hear that.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks. All right, next.
Under action items at 8A, there was only one item. I can read that into the record.
All right, we'll move on to the regular portion of oral communications, starting with Robert Movsesian, followed by Herbert Milano.
Good evening, dear council members, Mr. Kisarkian and staff. Mr. city manager. After 12 years, you should know better that you may help legislate the law, but you cannot execute or implement the law. I hope you have had learned by now. I hope you remember this. Number 2, year 2004, Mayor Bob Yousefian, Weaver, Quintero, Mr. Gomez, Manuk Khudabashian spent almost $500,000 of Glendale's taxpayers' money to construct so-called Chess Park on Brand Boulevard. But it became a place for loitering and loafing and no healthy activity because nothing in that place was done right. The construction and design, they did not know what they are doing. And they didn't have no idea or experience. How did you spend $500,000 for this useless public place? If you wanted to build a chess park, did you ever bother to consult with other successful parks that are better? What happened to that $500,000? It sounds fishy to me. I hope next time when you hire somebody, he knows what he's doing, somebody who has experience to build a chess park, who knows how to design a chess park. Chess park has to have parking places, parking spaces, and a toilet at least, because chess players usually play 4, 5, 6 hours. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Milano, if you'll permit me just for a minute, I didn't realize that we also have a presentation from the Glendale Youth Alliance. So please come to the podium. And
This will be technically under staff comments.
yeah, this is going to be under staff comments, really, since they're both. So please, your name for the record.
Great, thank you. Don Nakamoto, Administrator for Workforce Development in the city, and I'm with go ahead.
Hi, I'm Karina Gregorian, the Program Supervisor for the Glendale Youth Alliance, and we just want to report on our Summer Youth Employment Program for this year.
Let me just start off by saying that the good news is we will be having a Summer Youth Employment Program, despite the fact that currently Congress is debating whether to allocate funding out to the country for summer youth programs. We're able to negotiate a deal with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Social Services and get some grant funding to launch the program locally. The only caveat is that the funding is only for certain eligible populations, and Karina will get into that in more detail with her presentation.
Well, we're happy to announce that LA County will be funding our Summer Youth Employment Program this year. We'll be able to serve over 300 youth, approximately 315 youth, ages 14 to 19. As Mr. Nakamoto mentioned, LA County has mailed out flyers to all eligible participants. Over 100,000 flyers have been mailed out throughout LA County. I believe about 2,000 of the qualified youth are from this region, the Glendale-Burbank region. For the youth to qualify for the programs, they must be on CalWORKs, food stamps, or receiving general relief. There's also special provisions for foster youth that will be able to serve. Youth are given a list of the 5 closest youth providers within closest to their residence, and they will be served on a first-come, first-served basis. The letters were mailed out last week, I believe on Wednesday. As of Thursday, we started having youth come in. We have over 400 youth already within a matter of several days.
We're currently looking for work sites to host our youth participants. The grants will pay for 100% of their wages for 180 hours during the summer period from July to August. If anyone's interested, please contact the Glendale Youth Alliance, and we'd be happy to provide more information. Thank you.
Why don't you give us the phone number?
Sure, 818-548-2790.
548-2790.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, and let me say that I put in my order, as I do every year, for the annual hillside cleanup. Don't forget, everyone that owns property in the hills, you have to get that brush down so to prevent fire during the fire season. And also, you will be fined by our fire marshals who go out and inspect the hillsides if you don't get it done. But the GYA does a tremendous job. I actually know how many kids I need, so I'll have 3 kids coming over, and it gives me a chance to do some supervising. I haven't supervised teenagers, but I'm just joking, because in fact one of the 3 youth will be the team leader, and so they're very responsible. They've done it for years, and anyway, I definitely recommend the Glendale Youth Alliance for all of these hillside clean-outs and other jobs. I mean, they give you a very good price, do a professional job with first-rate equipment. They haul it all away, and you're done. You don't have to worry about liability, about someone falling on your property and suing you, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Thank
great
you. We
organization. Ms.
appreciate
Friedman.
your support.
And can you just maybe take a moment and explain for maybe our small business owners how they can, get involved with this?
Sure. We actually have 6 programs that we operate throughout the year. We serve over 500 youth annually. We have 4 grant programs, one of which is a summer program. We also have 3 programs that we operate during the year. The grants pay completely for the youth wages. So it's 160 to 180 hours, workers' compensation, everything's covered, fringe benefits. So it's a real big incentive for the businesses. They'll be saving money. They have really sharp, motivated youth at their business. And a lot of these youth have been hired by a lot of the local hospitals, libraries, within City Hall as well. So definitely, as well as our self-sustaining programs where private property owners can hire the youth to do general labor tasks or clear up their hillside, do the hillside clearance or yard maintenance for a small fee.
So can you give us the number one more time for people who are interested
Sure.
in hiring these kids?
Sure, it's 818-548-2790, or you can visit our website, GlendaleYouthAlliance.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Nakamoto. Okay. Herbert Milano, followed by Mike Mohill.
Mayor Pro Tem Quintero, members of the City Council, and city staff, my name is Herbert Milano. I'm going to be making a minor change to what I intended to bring up to you. I will still do a display of some information that is relevant for the public at large to know. This past few days after the announcement of the death of John Wooden, I thought about coming here and making a presentation in that regard. Despite all of the newspaper coverage, despite all the television coverage, but the life that this man lived is so very hard to live up to. It's incredibly difficult. And yet, these are the very essence of the words that are taught generally at the Glendale School District. They have this whole range of character and ethic words, but things about honesty and integrity or preparation. And hearing those words coming from Mr. Weaver is a tremendously, or the concept of recognizing John Wooden is a very pleasant surprise to me. I was there at the Pacific Edison presentation. I think it was 93 or 94. I took my kids. We bought the books. We had John Wooden signed up, or his co-writer signed the books. And I still have them because it was my intent to show my children the type of things that I admire, the type of character that I admire, and the type of character that I try to live up to, but still is an incredibly hard and arduous task to live to that type of level of character. And I bring that up because if the City Council is going to live by that type of structure that you laid out for us, I think we're going to take care of a lot of problems that we have in the city of Glendale, including attending to all the social problems that we have, attending to the budget problems that we're facing, and bringing up transparency and accountability, which were some of the things that were so prevalent with regard to the way Joe Wooden coached. I graduated from UCLA in 1975, which was John Wooden's last year. And I got to enjoy 3 very successful years during that long run of 88, the win of 88 games, the streak of 88 games. So I'm bringing this up to you because this, in a way, concerns issues about character. And I want to present to you information that I presented to you in the past, which has to do with the Glendale government salaries and wage trends for about the last 9 years. This is information that was presented and collected from the W3, which is the compilation of the W2 forms. It's a transmittal form sent to the IRS. If I may have the next slide, please. Anyone? There we go. This is the combination of the gross salaries that appear on the W-2 plus the deferred wages from 2000 through 2009. And what you're going to see here is that we have a steady, relentless increase on the overall payroll expenditures year after year. It doesn't matter if we have a recession. It doesn't matter if the taxes go down. There's a relentless pressure for wages continually on the upward trend. And there's a combination of the wages and deferred wages. Let me have the next slide, please. If we were to say what is a justifiable increase for certain positions, it would be for them to increase at the consumer price index rate, at the inflation rate. Well, the inflation rate for that period was only 24.6%. The population rate was only 3.5%. So if we were to combine the two and say we make allowances for the population increase plus the inflation rate, we should have an increase on the salaries of those positions, all else being equal, of 25.5%. But payroll expenditures increased over 50%. Pension expenses increased over 284%. Medical insurance expenditures, 500%. And that's not all. One last one, please, if I can get your assistance. If we were to take the public safety governmental expenditures for 2001, 53, almost 54 million. For 2009, 110, a growth rate of 105%. So here's my summary on this. An ever larger and larger portion of our expenditures are going into salaries and benefits, to the detriment of the expenditures that we need to make on infrastructure and many other programs that are truly essential. For example, it would be fantastic if the city were to allow from its general fund money sufficient to be able to cover an expansion of the youth summer program, and to have every available kid who wants a job to be able to find a job. But we don't have money for that because the money is going into that relentless pressure that you have and that demand that you have for payroll increases and benefit increases. Is my time through? Or do I have 30 seconds?
No, actually, that was 30 seconds longer.
That was 30 seconds? Very well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mike Mulhill, followed by Charles Hooker.
Mike Mulhill, long-term resident, Glendale. Last week we talked about Memorial Day and what it meant, and I had written a letter, and I'd like to read this letter to you, what it means to me. I rarely speak publicly about my military experience in Vietnam, because I feel lucky to be one of the soldiers who returned home in one piece and in sound mind. I was in my early 20s, naive and fresh out of college, when I volunteered for the Army. The politicians called Vietnam a conflict, but to the soldiers on the ground it was war. When talking about the war, I would say to family and friends, I was a lover and never a soldier. When I was discharged, there was no military parade for me or my comrades in arms, as it was just best to blend into society and move on with one's life. I was one of the lucky ones who were able to make the transition. I knew, on the other hand, many soldiers came home with limbs gone, drugs addicted, and brokenhearted. About 2 years ago, I visited the Veterans Hospital in the Valley and saw an establishment that made me want to cry. Acres of rundown buildings and landscaping. The complex was old, and because of politics and government neglect, reminded me how lucky I was to have been able to transition to civilian life and live comfortably. At the VA hospital were hundreds of people with serious problems, unlike me, being pushed around in wheelchairs, crutches, and sadness in their eyes. Why wasn't this country honoring these heroes with an environment that was new and cheerful and not old and neglected? Last month in the newspaper I read where the city of Burbank was honoring a local hero by the name and dedicating a city park in his honor. Corporal Larry Leonard Maxson had received the Congressional Medal of Honor for heroism while serving in Vietnam. I never knew Corporal Maxson, but I did something I had never done before. I got involved and went to Pacific Park and became one person in a crowd of hundreds, honoring an individual I had never met. As Memorial Day is just around the corner, I am reminded every Tuesday evening how lucky I am to be able to appear before my city council and staff and tell the members how I feel on different issues. The other evening was no different to me, and I am sure for the thousands of other citizens throughout the country doing the same thing. We know we live in a democracy where we would not be put in jail for not agreeing with our elected officials. I approached the speaker's stand and looked right into the eyes of my 5 city council members. As I made eye contact, I reminded our council members how lucky we all are for all the Corporal Maxsons who gave their lives so we can be free to disagree. This Memorial Day, I would be honored if the good citizens of Glendale paused for just one moment and say a prayer for all the Corporal Maxsons who made it possible to be living in a free country despite all its warts and shortcomings. Thank you. I have copies if anybody wants.
Charles Hooker, followed by Margaret Hammond.
Staff members, councilmen, my name is Charles Hooker, and what I would like to talk about is Montrose. We do not need a big liquor market in Montrose. We need a market, period, or something like a Bob's Big Boy, a Sizzler, or any large restaurant for that particular land. We do not have. And the second thing I'd like to say is we do not have to have the main boulevard in Montrose blocked off for a private wedding. I don't know how that happened. Montrose is a small community without large shopping centers such as Glendale has. We do not have, and we do not need Montrose to have condos, apartments, or such as like Glendale has. If the city council ruins Montrose and lets all of this stuff go on, it is going to be a shame, and I hope people can remember them. We had a mayor in the 1970s who let Glendale get overbuilt. We don't need that in Montrose. We don't want to be ruined and have everybody living on top of each other. We have a little bit of land in back of our houses, and we would like to keep Montrose small. Thank you.
Thank you. Margaret Hammond.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, staff, and audience. My name is Margaret Hammond. I kind of agree with Mr. Hooker on that. I saw Glendale go from a lovely little town, so to speak, even though it was a city, into a horrendous big city with all the problems of traffic and overcrowding of the schools and all the other things that go on. And of course, particularly, as they say, below the 134, where we have 40% of the population, if you translate that into numbers, that would be 80,000 people in the area below the 134. And it's really bad. And as you probably or may not be aware, there is only one homeowners association in that whole area, which is Adams Hill Homeowners. And that means that virtually the people down there do not have a voice. Because, of course, the homeowners associations in the north end and whatever, east and west, they speak up when they have problems. They come to council, they go to the planning. People there, unfortunately, are too busy working for a living. Some of them 2 and 3 jobs. So I say again, just remember that, the chickens are going to come home to roost one day when the people down there get so overcrowded, they'll be like rats in a trap and turn on not just themselves, but there's going to be more than just a little bit of trouble about the fact that that the area is neglected. There's no doubt about that. Now, the other thing I'd like to address is the fact that, and I have asked about this before, the fact that when city council people don't agree with the speakers who come forward to speak, and they make faces and throw themselves back in their chair, or they get up and leave, and all kinds of various things. I think that's very disrespectful. After all, the people that come here spend their time. They could be doing other things. But if they care enough to come forward and voice their thoughts and their concerns, and a lot of times concerns of their fellow neighbors who cannot come forward, and that it's not very nice to make them look like they don't know what they're talking about or that they're idiots. No, they're not. They may not couch the words in a proper manner or whatever, but nevertheless, they do have a right to speak and be treated with respect. I have asked in the past, I said maybe we ought to be able to have the council on being filmed or a split screen, and then the audience at home would be able to see what's going on, what the speakers have to look at. And I do think that would be a thought. The other thing about schools, I'm a great person to say that we need to have more people involved with schools, volunteers. For instance, go to schools and read to the classes. Teachers really appreciate that. It gives them a break. And also, the children love it because it's a different person talking to them than their teacher that they see every single day. So anytime you do have time, and they particularly enjoy, I think, older, like the older ladies from the Assistance League that go and do it faithfully, the children love it. And as I've said before, the response is amazing. I mean, they come up after you read and they see you in the hall and they come and touch you and talk to you and want to, ask you about things even to do with the books and so forth. So it is a really good program that they have from the Assistance League, aside from all their other wonderful programs that they do. And that's really what I have to say mostly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that's the final card for communications. Any
There is no
comments?
new business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Actually, Ms. Friedman, did you have a comment?
Just because it's only 7:30, I think it's the fastest city council meeting that I've ever attended. But I did want to just say something to Margaret. Well, first of all, I think we all appreciate when the public comes, so I hope that we didn't give the impression that we didn't. But I wanted to echo about going to read to the school kids. I did that this year for the first time, and I ended up not reading the book. I brought a book, and instead we decided to do oral communications. And these were middle school kids. No, they were elementary kids. So we did I told them all about how members of the public can come to city council, anybody, no matter what age you are, and they can get up and speak. And the kids were fascinated by this. They couldn't believe that they could come and be on television. I thought that was just the greatest thing. So we practiced doing oral communications, and I learned that all the little girls wanted more libraries, more stuff in the libraries, and all the boys wanted more video games everywhere. So I know now that if I'm ever running for election of an elementary school, that video games is the way to win that election. So that's a tip for anyone running for class president in elementary school. But it is a really great and rewarding thing to do, to go and volunteer. And you're right, the kids just love having guests come to class.
That's funny. That's good. Any other comments? Mr. Howard? Or
City manager on the new council
comment,
chambers. Is there an announcement about that?
Pardon me?
Announcement about the about the council chambers?
Oh, we could do that. Steve Zern, Public Works Director, is confident that next Tuesday's council meeting will be back in the original City Hall council chambers.
Yes.
Some of us did take a walk through today, and I will tell you it looks quite nice, especially considering that all of the work was done by our own in-house Public Works crews, craftsmen, and the likes, and they have done a tremendous job. So he assures me, although we'll be on temporary chairs,
but nice temporary
chairs.
So don't
It'll
anybody
be
get
July until permanent chairs are in. We expect to be back in the original council chambers next week.
So don't anybody come in and complain about the chairs.
And if I can just be a Budinsky, just if anybody hasn't seen them yet, who comes to City Hall or hasn't been here in a while, they made quite a discovery when they removed the, what was it, wood parquet? I can't even remember now.
Wood parquet and
wood
carpet.
parquet floor. They found the original historic floor tile underneath. And it's really beautiful concrete colored tile with an amazing pattern, and we are hopefully going to be continuing our restoration project of it, but it was a little added bonus that I think that we've uncovered a little bit of history, and it's very special when you walk in now. It really feels like you're walking into a city hall. So if you haven't seen it and you have any inkling to see what it was like here 80 years ago, come to City Hall and see. And right now it's not looking its greatest because they had drilled right into a lot of the tiles, but we are restoring them, and so they'll be spectacular
Well,
soon.
you will have a matter on an upcoming agenda
You will.
as to whether or not you want to spend the money to restore the floor.
That's right.
So I might add, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, that it is the first discovery in this building that is historic other than Mr. Weaver.
Well, there,
That building opened in 42. I was 3 years old, so.
Mr. Mayor, there was the mummy, but we're not talking much about that.
Well, and let me add that basically that was built under the WPA, President Roosevelt's WPA, just like the Burbank City Hall, which has that beautiful mural, which I think that should be a significance to some of our Republicans here in the city of Glendale. Look at what the WPA and Roosevelt's administration did. A very difficult time in our nation's history. Anything else, Mr. Kosaki?
Just a motion to adjourn in memory of the coach.
Okay, we'll adjourn in memory of Coach Wooden.
Thank you.